Hello and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 2. In the last episode, we sent a probe and mapped Minmus, and we even got the chance to touch that probe down. And so, we technically have landed on Minmus. However, we haven't done it with a Kerbal, and I think until we can put Kerbal boots on it, I don't think we should count it as landed, and therefore we are going to go visit it again. But this time, we are going to land at the Minmus Monument, which is the next mission in our storyline. So it was quite a long mission, so I'm going to actually skip the build progress. There's nothing too spectacular about the ship. It's pretty similar to any ship that I build in almost any of my series, so we're going to go ahead and skip that and just focus fully on the mission today. First thing we're going to do though is check out our science. We don't have any to spend, so there's nothing we can unlock for this mission. So we are just going to go ahead and open up Mission Control and check out that and see what we have available. I'm tracking the Little Chonker mission because I'm hoping that our lander will be above the required weight, but I didn't actually plan on doing this mission today. So instead we're going to focus on the Minmus Monument. It's a large chunk of science and the next in line for our main story mission. So it's definitely important. So let's go ahead, we're going to skip the building process like I mentioned before, and we're just going to load up right here on the launch pad. As you can see here, it's nothing too dissimilar from anything we've seen before. You know, a lander that has 4 radial attached tanks with 4 Terror engines, all put atop a rocket meant to get it into low Kerbal orbit. And like that, we have liftoff. It's very slow. It's a very low thrust to weight ratio on this lower stage, at least in the beginning. But it works. It was enough. Kind of sad that our shadow doesn't have the shadow of the plume, but what can you do? Looking great. So we're going to do a little bit of editing in this mission. We're going to cut through some certain spots, but for the most part, it's going to be just focus on the mission today. We're going to get ourselves to and from Minmus, hopefully, and aim to plant a flag at the monument. Our Kerbal today is Billy Bobbly Kerman. An odd choice. We definitely didn't think that he was going to be slated for the first Minmus project, but he had the best scores, so I just had to put him in the cockpit and let him fly. Here we are, passing the cloud layer, starting our gravity turn, just ever so slightly. Music takes over, giving us encouragement as we go along. I can't remember which engine this is that I'm using as the lower stage, but it's pretty beefy. It's a good one. And I have to remember it for the next one. Okay, as we gain in altitude, the stars are slowly starting to appear in the background. Love it. And we're not doing the best gravity turn here. I'm not entirely sure why. I used the K2D2 to handle the ascent, and I feel like the launch profile could be a little bit better, but oh well. I've been enjoying using K2D2, but for this mission I'm actually going to be using, I'm going to be flying by hand for certain portions of it, particularly the landing and stuff. I don't trust Mech Jab, I don't trust K2D2, I don't trust those to handle my landing. I've been burned too many times before. Maybe I'm not doing it correctly, but you know, ascent guidance, it's okay. You know, handling nodes, I like its handling of maneuver nodes. I think both K2D2 and Mech Jab. Mech Jab could be a little better, but as far as landing goes, oof, that's too important. I can't leave that up to computers. So we reached main engine cutoff, and we're just going to skip ahead a little bit until it's time to circularize. And I went ahead and accidentally pressed retrograde, thinking that it was the prograde. And so we start to spin our rocket sideways, unfortunately. However, we have a high enough altitude currently that it's not going to be too much of a problem that we didn't execute our burn correctly the first time. So we just kind of flip ourselves over, point prograde. That's the last of our fuel, and so we ditch the lower stage and move on to the 4 boosters. 5 boosters, actually. Yeah, because there's a center engine, that's right. And now we are in orbit. Excellent. So here is where I ended up running into a little bit of a bug. I was not able to see or utilize any of our orbit lines. It happened because I had to do a quick load and quick save and quick load, and then when I came back, I just didn't have any orbit lines, which was unfortunate. Sometimes I've been able to fix it by going into the mission control and then back in tracking station. And as you see here, I did fix it a little bit. We now have our periapsis and our apoapsis. We can now see the Minmus, but it still doesn't have full functionality. It's just, it doesn't. So we're gonna quit to the main menu, save and exit, and then reload. And sometimes quitting to the main menu can help out a lot. So now, when we come back, I now have our ascending node and descending node available. So I can now adjust our inclination, which was what I was having a problem with before. However, I still don't have the orbit line, and on our nav ball, we're missing our indicators that's telling us which direction we're pointing. Nonetheless, I was able to change our inclination just by using tools alone. But again, no orbit lines, hard to see, hard to click on your thing, and so I wasn't very happy with this. So we're actually going to go ahead and save and quit one more time, but this time we're going to save and quit to the desktop. So let's go ahead and save. And we're going to just quit to the desktop, reload the game, and start anew. So here, we loaded the game again, coming back to our craft. And then when we go into map mode, we see, once again, our orbit lines are there. We can click on anything we need to. We can set our maneuvers. As everything full functionality once again. So just a reminder, if you run into a bug in KSP2, just take a second, save your game, quit to main menu, come back. If it's still there, save your game, quit to desktop, come back. Because oftentimes some of these bugs can be fixed with that. There's actually a lot of games. You run into a bug in many games, oftentimes simply just restarting fixes it. I don't know. It's troubleshooting, you know. That's why they ask, is it on? Is it plugged in? You know, turn it on, turn it off, then tell me what you see. So here we are. We have a Minmus encounter. Pretty good one, 500 kilometers above the surface. Nothing, that's not where we want to come in, but it's good enough for now. We can always do a mid-course correction as we go. So here we are, K2D2 handling the time warp. I kind of wish that it didn't. I kind of wish that it didn't auto time warp. Allow the user themselves to time warp, but kind of how Remote Tech does it in KSP1, where it just kills the time warp shortly before the maneuver. Yeah, and we already changed our inclination. We did that when I still had the glitch that didn't show the orbit lines. We still have that. So currently we're sitting at like a 0.1 inclination, I believe. So we're going to focus on Minmus so we can see our orbit come out. And because it was K2D2, it overshoots ever so slightly and pauses the game when it does. So we're going to have to fix that, but alright, so here is our goal. That's our target, right in kind of almost a polar landing there. So let's go ahead and create a maneuver node midway. We are going to adjust until we can line ourselves up with that target. Just a little bit of retrograde, bring it in. Let's go ahead and impact the planet. And let's bring a little normal upwards. We could actually go for a direct landing, but that would only be if the location is in the exact same spot as it was, or as it will be in the future. But no, instead we're just going to kind of come in for this fast and low orbit. We're going to swing over the top, capture, and then land. That looks good enough. And even if the target isn't exactly there when we arrive, by lining up this way, we know that we will eventually be over the target at some point in the orbit. So that's good enough for me. And surprisingly, this whole mid-course correction is only going to take one delta V. Just one. So it is actually important that we handle this before we plot in the maneuver. So we're going to turn off all of our engines except for the center one, because we have way too much thrust to weight ratio for one delta V. And so now we're only going to use the center engine for our burn, but also it's one delta V. So I'm going to turn down the thrust limit on that as well, so it takes longer than just a split second to burn. Like, if this thing burns for a while, then I will be happier with that because I know it'll be accurate. And right now, we want accurate. I got time to spend. I got time to waste. You know, when you have long burns, you go, you make yourself a cup of coffee, you come back, you know. It's all good. I say that now, and then we'll be dealing with ion engines and nuclear engines soon enough, and I'll be going out for dinner and then coming back, and then hopefully it'll be done by then. But yeah, long burns. So yeah, like I mentioned, I turned down the thrust very much, so it is going to take a while for this orbit line to come through. So we just skip ahead. But, you know, I was happy that I did it. You know, if we had left that engine at full throttle, there's a chance we could have overshot this. And if we had left all those engines on, there's a real chance we would have overshot this and just ended up somewhere else in space. Alright, so that's looking good. Good enough anyways. So let's go ahead and return the thrust limiter on that. Let's activate all of our side engines, because we are going to need all the power we can get to orbit, because we're going to be coming in very fast. Alright, so let's focus on Minmus, and let's bring the ship in. Time warping ahead. Careful not to go too fast. It's always nice watching the craft and the planet come together like this. Oh, too fast. Like I said. You can't go too fast. So I missed my periapsis. I didn't get the chance to plot in the maneuver. I didn't get the chance to do anything. So we're just going to flip retrograde real fast and try to recover this as best we can. There we go. Not the best orbit. Not the best inclination, but it'll have to do. It's what happens when you have to fly by the seat of your pants and handle things at the last second. But thankfully we didn't fly right on past it. Like, we're still in orbit. We still have plenty of Delta V, you know. Used a little bit more than would have liked, but... So now I am going to spend some time, I'm actually going to skip ahead a little bit. I'm going to spend some time to plot in a maneuver to bring us closer to the landing point. There we go. That'll give us another trajectory that will be hopefully a little bit easier to work with. The thing I also have to consider is time, is where that location will be in relative to us at any given point in time, and depending on how close I am will make a difference in our approach. So we only got 32 Delta V to spend. We're running out of fuel in our side tanks, which isn't great, but we do have fuel lines connecting the side tanks to the center tank. So once the sides go out, the center should replenish. And hopefully, as long as we don't waste too much Delta V in the landing process, hopefully that will be enough to get us home. So I could just wait several orbits until the landing zone is directly below us. However, the angle that we're at, we're going to be in the dark side. Like, if we were to wait for the monument to be below us, it would definitely be in the shadow. We'd have to land in the dark and then time warp until daytime in order to see anything. So instead, we're just going to use the Delta V that we have. We only need 182 to complete this maneuver, roughly. And we're just going to brute force our way to the side and land when we want to land. How we want to land. Billy Bobbly is not going to have anybody making jokes about him not knowing when to land. Everyone was surprised when Billy Bobbly was picked instead of Jeb or Tim or Valentina for that matter. So he's got a lot riding on this maneuver right here. And just like that, it pitches to the right spot, a little bit ahead of where we want to go. So we're going to just go into retrograde once the game comes back to play. I'm going to go into retrograde, puff a little bit, and try to come a little bit closer to the monument. But that was a little too far. We're going to go prograde once again. Wish there was a way to focus on your landing zone. There we go. So now we can land in the sunlight, which is always preferable. So let's face retrograde and get ready to descend. Just going over all of my things, making sure everything is as good as we can. We've only got 53 Delta V left in those side tanks, and then they are out. We'll only be able to land on our center engine. However, I was not planning on being out of fuel by this point, and so all of our landing legs are on the side tanks, not on the center tank. So unfortunately, we're going to have to carry that dead weight down to the surface if we want to be able to land stably on our legs. Would be more efficient to ditch them because then the craft wouldn't weigh as much, and then landing we wouldn't need to use as much Delta V, which means that we would have more fuel, and when we have more fuel that means we can go farther. So this is not the best landing. Like, don't take this landing and look at it and be like, oh, this is how I should land my vehicles, because this is just, we're flying by the seat of our pants, people. Yeah, we're braving the exploration. This is the first time landing a Kerbal on Minmus, specifically in a very specific spot, so it's very exciting for me. Like I've just been enjoying making these missions and these videos. Like I don't want to spoil anything, but we're working on a Duna mission right now that is just going perfectly. Let me just smoothly, everything 100% to plan. We'll go with that. But anyways, back to Minmus. Our trajectory is a little off again. Wouldn't mind flipping that and pointing a little closer to the target. So I first click point up, radial out, but that's not what I want. I want to point normal. I believe north is normal, not anti-normal. So point normal and just kick on the engine just a little bit of thrust until I point myself up with the target. And now I am going to point myself radial out, and hopefully that will allow us to move closer to target. Yes, it will. And then we run out of our side tank fuel right there, exactly where we needed to, because we are now lined up to land as close as we can to the monument. So we've got 1371 Delta V left, which should be plenty. But the real question is how much of that are we going to use, and how much will we need to get home? Let's go ahead and clear the K2D2 window because we're not going to be needing it. We are landing by hand. I love the soundtrack to Minmus. The violins are just phenomenal on this. Extend the landing gears. Kick on our engine just a second to see what our thrust is like. And it does not slow us down very much, so we're gonna have to really be careful with this landing. Especially if we're doing it in cinematic mode like this. We have no gauges to tell how fast we're going or how high we are. We're just flying by eye. So I'm starting to go a little bit farther than I had wanted, but I'm also starting to realize that I'm killing off my horizontal velocity pretty quickly. So now I'm like floating basically. I'm no longer falling horizontally, and I'm no longer falling vertically. So now we push ourselves up just ever so slightly, and we're gonna point towards the monument to just get a little bit closer. We don't need to land directly on it, but if we can save a couple kilometers of travel, that would be best. We're going to time warp our way down. I kind of just realized that I did this entire way without ever extending my solar panels or communications dishes. Just, you know, I kind of rushed this mission. I'm not going to lie. Like, I feel like I want to say, like, oh, no, we took our time and we really thought about what we were doing. But no, I kind of built something and sent it, you know? Not having crashed, not having any kind of like test flight situation going, it makes me so brazen. It's just like, well, we can't test it, so we might as well just send it. I get this weird bug where it starts to darken as I land. It's almost like the sun is being eclipsed by me, but no, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this. Maybe it's supposed to be like this? I couldn't tell, but made for a little bit more hairy of a landing, I'll just say that. But you know, personally, that's kind of like the fun parts of KSP for me. Like when things start going wrong, that's when things start getting interesting. How can we fix this? How can we make make this landing in the dark work? How can we get Billy Bobley home with not enough Delta V? How can we, you know, rescue Valentina from orbit of the sun? How can we do our mission with absolutely no solar panels? Like, all these things, these challenges. I think that's where the fun in KSP comes from, is the problem solving. For me, anyways. So the music starts to fade out as we get closer. I've said it before, I said it again, I think it should increase as you get closer. I think it should build up to a point right until the moment you land, and then that's when it should calm down. Because we can crash right now, and then we'll have no music to accompany our dramatic death. Here we are. We have lights on the bottom of our craft, so it allows us to see in the dark. Very good foresight. And our thrust is heavy enough that we keep popping back upwards, so we have to really just kick it on ever so slightly. But there we go. We landed on Minmus. Let's go ahead and do some science, transmit it all. Unfortunately, we don't complete any missions here because we never actually had a mission to land on Minmus. The only mission that we had was to land at the monument, and technically we're not at the monument yet. So nothing to be collected as far as science or... I guess it's not reputation. I guess you only get science from the mission, so nothing to collect as far as that. But, so let's, yeah, see, when I zoom out, I don't see the shadow anymore. So that's why I was thinking, like, oh, maybe it's just a bug. So let's just time warp a little bit, change the angle of our sun ever so slightly, and then come back in. And there we go. And of course, because it's Minmus, time warps pop you up a little bit, but thankfully, no harm was done. Look at that. Look at that monument. Look at that craft. Look at those graphics. Everything is just looking great. Billy Bobley excitedly gets out with his RCS pack and takes a shot for posterity. Send back to the Kerbals back home, the newspapers, to let them know that there is indeed life out there. So let's approach the monument, see what we can see. And once again, a big ol' Kerbal looking thing, but with tentacles in the mouth. The Precursors. He lands fairly gracefully and takes a moment to consider his surroundings. He is just in absolute awe of the grandiosity of what is before him. It's glorious. They should have sent a poet. So Billy Bobley grabs the surface sample that he was required to grab, takes his observation reports, writes down, or records anyways, his thoughts on the situation. And lastly, before he goes, needs to take a moment and claim this location for Kerbal kind. Billy Bobley, first Kerbal on the surface of Minmus. And what a place to be. Not just any surface of Minmus, but the most reverent and grand place of Minmus. God, look at that texture. Oh, I love it. I wonder if that material is what they would have used as the resources that the colonists are trying to collect. This kind of teal glass crystal looking thing. I think there was another, I think we saw another one of those. Oh no, the Moon Arch didn't have it. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm speculating. I haven't watched any videos about the Kerbal lore of KSP2 or any of the big things like this. I kind of wanted to discover it for myself. So apologies if I'm asking questions that have clear answers to, because I'm just kind of speculating as I go with what I've discovered for myself. But yeah, we'll see more soon enough. Heading to Duna next. But getting ahead of ourselves, we need to get Billy Bobbly home first. So let's go ahead and take off. And we're going to eject those side boosters because they're not doing anything but weighing us down. But it was good that we had the landing legs that we needed. And as we ascend, the soundtrack kicks in once more. I like the look of this ship. It's kind of plane-like. And it is very efficient at leaving the surface of Minmus. Like, I was not expecting to be on an escape trajectory already, but that's how it goes. So we say goodbye to the Minmus Monument, probably for the last time. I don't foresee us coming back here. Well, we might come back to Minmus, do some science and different biomes and stuff, but we have no need to come back to the monument. We've learned what we can, and it's inspired us forward. I learned recently that if you don't time warp too fast, you get to hear more of the soundtrack, because it's all based on how close you are and what situation you are in any given time. So if you want to hear more of any particular soundtrack, just don't time warp as fast. You get more. This is like the third time I've mentioned it, but in the next episode when we go to Duna, whew, the soundtrack there, amazing. Oh, I love it so much. That is, there's the next episode that I'm sitting on right now is a doozy. There's so much work to be done with it, but again, ahead of myself. Let's get this Kerbal back home. We are now no longer in the sphere of influence of Minmus. We're back in the sphere of influence of Kerbin, but if we don't act fast, we will be sent right on out and we will orbit the sun instead. So we want a nice low periapsis. We don't have a lot of fuel left, so we want to make sure that we can re-enter if necessary. And what I like to do with that is I like to bring my periapsis to 70, like 70.01. 73 will be fine, that's close enough, but very close to the actual Kármán line. And then that way, I use up all the fuel that I can to get that. And then I use up the last of my fuel to bring down my apoapsis and circularize. And if I don't have enough fuel during that point, that's when I choose to re-enter or go to my apoapsis, get out and push my periapsis down in. So that's kind of been, it's my little plan of attack typically for capturing or recapturing into Kerbin. Alright, so a couple more seconds, and then we will activate our maneuver. And even though it's just the one engine, the Terra engine, it still is pretty impressive, so it doesn't take too long to bring down that orbit. And using K2D2 helps out a lot because it just automatically cuts off when it needs to. Not perfectly, but automatically. Yep. As you see here, it drops us to 69. So leaves a little bit to be desired, but you know, it's as long as you know what you're getting into going into it, you know, you don't get as long as you don't get upset when it does what it does, because that's just what it does. And sometimes it pushes you over. Sometimes it pushes you under. Sometimes you need a little bit of human correction in there, and that's just okay. There we go. Now, once again, our periapsis is outside the atmosphere. So we're going to create a maneuver here, and we're going to try to circularize as much as possible. We're going to use as much as our fuel to lower our periapsis, or apoapsis, as low as possible. And it's only going to take a couple hundred delta V, and we have 1500, so this is going to be absolutely fine. There's going to be no need to really aero brake at all in this maneuver, because we can just bring our orbit down. Ah, look at that. Shining blue ball. Passing over the crater. Seeing some mountains. And then we hear the 3 beeps, and then we burn. And it's going down fast enough. This mission actually ended up turning out really well. Like, doing all right now. I mean, there's still time to fail, so I don't want to get too cocky, but... Alright, so the maneuver is done. It took a little bit towards the end. It got fairly slow, but so I just sped up ahead, and we are now in a stable orbit above Kerbin. But then as I time warp closer, I realize our periapsis is within the atmosphere. It's at 52 kilometers. I don't know how that happened, because it definitely was higher than that before. But it happened regardless. We have plenty of time to fix it. So we're going to point radial out and burn just a little bit to bring our periapsis to 71 kilometers. Our apoapsis to 198. So we are still in orbit. We're not going to come back in. I'd like to land as close to the KSC as possible, and that's why I keep making these orbits, is because I want to get the KSC on the light side of the planet. And it's only letting us time warp a certain amount because we're close enough to the planet that it doesn't want us to time warp past a certain point. There we are. The KSC is now in the sunlight, early morning. So we can plot in our return. Now, I spend quite a lot of time fiddling with this return plot, but I'm just going to skip ahead and say I didn't do it correctly. I really wanted to land as close as possible to the KSC, but I didn't do my math correctly. I didn't do my angles correctly. I forgot the fact that when you drop a stage, you actually land quicker than you would before. I also could have just taken into account the trajectory of it instead of trying to eyeball the atmospheric drag of it. So all sorts of things I did bad, but I tried. That's all that needed to be wrapped up into, is I tried to land at the KSC and I couldn't quite, but regardless, I did get ourselves on a suborbital trajectory, so we are coming home. We only got 476 delta V left in our tank. We are focused still on radial out, which is why our craft is turning that way. I forgot to uncheck it from the last maneuver we made, so it's good to pay attention good to realize what you're doing. So we're going to use up the last of our fuel, just whatever we can, as we pass over the KSC. It's pretty cool that you can see all the buildings and stuff from there, little complexes. Yeah, so ran out of fuel, so we're going to point radial out to toss off our lower stage. I like doing radial out because it puts it on a different plane than the capsule that you just separated it from, so have no risk of it coming back and hitting us. That's good. Yeah, I way overshot the KSC. Look at that. One thing I really like about KSP2 is the fact that the heat shield changes its coloring after being affected by the fire. I think that's a really nice touch. So we're spitting a little bit to dissipate some of the heat off the Science Juniors. Make sure that they don't blow up. I'm pretty sure that science is already stored in the capsule, not in the Science Junior itself. So if it exploded, I think we'd still have the science, but I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, because we had such a low orbit, low angle, we're not coming in at such a blistering high speed. The re-entry heating was nothing to worry about. We got through it as easily as we got into it. And now it's just a matter of making sure we activate our parachutes and bring Billy Bobbly down safely. Interesting water texture. It's not very waffled like typically, but still has a nice pattern to it. So there we go. All three of our parachutes opened as expected. At a decent height too, they should have plenty of time to capture and open up. There we go. And so now we are cruising down at a cool 6.2 meters per second or something along those lines. Hop into first person view, but nothing really to see here. And we're just gonna come back down to the planet. Billy Bobbly is excited to tell his co-workers and colleagues of everything that he saw. He's going to get questioned about every specific detail of the journey and of everything he saw. So he's excited. He's going to think about that as the Kerbal Navy and Kerbal Air Force fly out and sail out to go pick him up and take him home. But with that, our Minmus attempts are done, and we will be turning our focus on Duna in the next episode. I'm super excited for that, and I hope you are as well. But anyways, that's where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward for more KSP2. If you did, please consider giving me a like, drop me a comment, let me know your thoughts, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.